going
Al.
live. Oh, hi, Archive Panic. Al here to discuss Cantina communication. He's not here. He's busy.
We miss you.
But we do have his likeness, so we can cherish him.
Well, if you didn't know, Al is just 3 Scandits in a costume.
Yeah, he's like, you put the little hat and you put the little trench coat. He's really fooled us all, honestly. But the bigger news is, if you notice, if we get rid of this for a moment, and we focus on this for a moment.
Temporary owl that I manufactured.
I don't know.
Thank you for the temporary owl, Robert.
Yeah,
we appreciate
that
it.
That was truly, just that you see that me and Brennan are here in the same room. He's real.
He's are you?
I think so.
Oh, whoa. Jeez,
that was scary.
That was crazy.
I thought you were going to be a screen or something, but
yeah,
no, it was like your face.
I got a bit scared there for a second.
Me too. What the heck? It's what?
There it is.
Alrighty.
All right, we good.
Today, we're on episode 9 of the Expanded Universe Wayback Machine, also dubbed Legends, whichever way you slice it, because that's why my playlist is Expanded Universe. And my actual episode title is Legends, even though I think in my episode titles themselves I'm not being consistent, which has really upset Brennan.
I must voice my displeasure with this.
Yeah, you're not being consistent, but you cover all your bases, because some people search Legends, some people search Expanded Universe, so you got to.
If anybody tries to copyright and steal my idea, they can't, because it's mine, and I've covered all.
I mean, do we officially have this? Like trademarked and all that.
I don't know how you officially do that, but everyone will know they stole it from me by the publication date of this release of the live stream.
Yeah.
So, exactly. But today we're talking about quite a unique piece of Expanded Universe.
First short story ever published in the history of the EU. Would that be correct? I believe.
And
probably.
Yeah.
And Brennan is one of the few that I know of to actually have a physical copy of this thing. We're not going to really dive into it on here because it's going to be kind of hard to see on a camera.
Yeah.
But I thought I would show for all of you what it would look like if you had the actual edition. You can find it online if you look around fairly easily. If you
there
see
she
here,
is.
It opens up like that. And also, you got the back side here. And if you open it again, you can get a big giant little
beautiful
poster.
Look at that. Nice. Poster monthly. And back in the day, this was probably the only way to experience the film, right?
If you look at it,
when you didn't have it on DVD.
Let's not. Careful.
Oh, okay. I can put it away.
I don't want it to break.
Whoa. But anyways, unless you were in a movie theater, right? If you just go over and over again, and I don't know, did people have the money to just go a bunch? Like the only way to experience these films, at the time, was to or to re-experience them at least, was to get a poster. Hang it up, relive the film. So I think it makes sense that these were popular at that time, but now I think they're kind of a product of their time. No one would buy this with the internet. The internet killed anything like this, I think. Maybe it died off before that.
People still buy R2 and 3PO posters, right? So, I mean, it's
probably
not the worst decision. Plus, you get a short story by John Chesterman, I believe is the author. Is that right?
That is indeed. Yep, that's right. And we do have it pulled up online as well.
Did he write anything else in the Expanded Universe by chance?
I was looking into that, and I believe this is his only one. Although I think it did mention that he worked for other Poster Monthly articles.
Okay.
As well.
Okay.
But only like prose short story, as far as I'm aware.
Mm-hmm. The title to this, Cantina Communications, makes you think it's a news article because it says reporting there, John Chesterman.
Thank you, sir.
But it doesn't seem like when you read it, it's like a news article or a video analysis of what the Cantina would be from a third party. It's pretty much Luke's perspective and him talking with Obi-Wan there.
If anything, it's like just a report from Luke.
So I just wanted to shout out real quick. Some okay dude. He talks about a lot of novels and comics and stuff, not Star Wars related necessarily, but I met him. I went on his channel once. It was pretty cool. He's a cool guy. But to answer your question, I have on my own by myself, reviewed the Expanded Universe in chronological order about twice now. And so I'm now doing it in publication order with friends in the Star Wars Expanded Universe. If you don't know, why are you doing? Sorry. If you don't know, is basically from 1977 as of the start of the movie, a little bit before the movie actually, because the novelization came out before the movie, to 2014. There was 30 plus years of
1976 novelization predates the film according to the interior by, let's see the math, 6 months, something like that. December 76.
So yeah, so the Star Wars Expanded Universe was a collection of novels, comics, video games, short stories, children's books, and other rare oddities like this, which, I mean, it's a short story, but it was in a magazine, so et cetera, et cetera. But basically, these were all meant to count within the continuity of Star Wars up until Disney bought the rights, and they kind of said, all this stuff don't matter no more. So
and that was the fatal mistake.
Fatal mistake.
Right.
But so this is my way of keeping it alive. I've gone through it twice, but I can only yap on so much. Now people care.
And you've done it twice in chronological order.
Yes.
What we're doing is experiencing it via release date.
So the idea is if you were like the super mega Star Wars fan and you somehow were able to garner all the information you possibly could throughout
every year. If you watched the movie and then became aware of Cantina Communications,
and then you read this, then I would get to experience it as someone would in 1977 and onward. And that's kind of the idea, just kind of experience the EU as it came and developed into something as it became later. But so this is my love letter to that. Besides that, as you know, I also review other novels now because I'm leaving my EU stuff for this podcast and my other novel reviews for me, myself, and I elsewhere to answer that question in a long way.
Right. So we're going from 1976 in release order, hopefully all the way to 2014.
Yeah,
when it
assuming
ended.
nobody assuming I don't die on my crash, or die on my airplane, no crash, back to California, and then we should be able to do more.
Episode 10 of many to come.
Yes, many to come. And also I would note maybe past 2014 as well. Some SWTOR short stories, Star Wars 2018, and maybe some unreleased stuff.
I should also
or we might do the unreleased stuff when it was supposed to come out.
I should also explain
we'll cross that bridge.
Around this time, I'm only mentioning it because I think it's relevant to mention that as of this time, I don't like to bring it up too much anymore. I think it's good to just kind of move past it. But I wanted to just quickly address that, yes, as of right now, I was supposed to be at Legends Con 2 to meet a lot of people as we celebrate the Expanded Universe. Of course, some stuff happened there. It's no longer happening. So instead of that, I traveled as of Thursday to this guy's home state,
humble abode
of Arkansas, to come meet up with him and hang out. And so while I'm not at that, I'm still celebrating the EU by doing this live stream and discussing this short, fun story with everyone here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And of course, regular co-host Scott, Robert.
Missing Al, but
yeah.
I made a joke about that at the very beginning, thanks to Robert. So
yeah, no convention this weekend, but next best thing is a podcast episode. So
with all the people I love in the door. So heartwarming.
Man, I didn't know this was a tearjerker podcast. Someone get me some tissues. Wow.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I guess. I mean, it's so short. We could probably just read through this entire story.
We can, if everyone wants, we could all take, a paragraph. I could read the first
slice,
one. I could read this first paragraph, and then. I
don't say paragraph. Say just do the slice down. Somebody else does the other slice.
Yeah.
Maybe. How does it go?
I forget the layout here.
Yeah,
I forget. Now it's also worth mentioning before we get into this. Reporting John Chesterman. I think we talked about this a bit before we started the podcast, but that would seem to indicate that perhaps is John Chesterman, in universe at all? Like if he's reporting, if he's writing this down, is he someone who interviewed Luke potentially later? You'd think that the reporting would imply that, but it doesn't seem like there's a character in universe. But again, there's been other instances like Ryan Kaufman, Abel G. Pena, they put themselves in universe by saying that they were translators of original text from within the universe. So it almost seems like it could be a similar situation here, but maybe not.
It could be. If it was in universe, it would probably be a account that was made known to the wider galaxy much later on. And it's possible that he got some of the facts wrong because Obi-Wan acts a little bit weird here. We'll get to that when we cover the story, but I'm not sure he would carry around a universal encyclopedia just in his Jedi robes there, which he
I love the idea that he does, though. I must say, I love the idea that, like, when the robes collapse in A New Hope, there's just an encyclopedia in there.
Yeah, that's what Vader was after. He kept it on Bast Castle after he recovered it on the Death Star
with Kenobi's lightsaber, huh?
Right. Yep.
Sorry, Robert, you were saying?
Maybe he changed his mind about the death sticks.
Go home and rethink.
You never know. Yeah, that death sticks and the Universal Encyclopedia. What a way to recline on a Sunday afternoon.
Also, when we get to Tales from Mos Eisley Cantina, the Night Lily Lover's Tale, it's also made known because Obi-Wan, he isn't in that story, but he's referenced because the tax collector Feltropren Travag tries to track him down and he just misses him at points in the story. But it's made known that Obi-Wan visits a health food store in Mos Eisley Cantina, so he does eat healthy.
Gosh, I love that.
It's specifically a health food store, which is very odd.
Obi-Wan Kenobi shops at Whole Foods, confirmed.
Well, we know Jabba the Hutt doesn't shop there based on his physique, but right, yeah, he's more of the McDonald's variety.
I'm just sharing it right now.
Yeah. So I could take this first paragraph. Maybe Robert with his beautiful voice would like to go from the middle section. Yeah.
We'll have Scott do that other.
Yeah, I'll let you know when to jump in, Robert. Okay. I'll begin with Cantina Communications, reported by John Chesterman. The universe had already revealed some bizarre forms of life, and more were discovered every year. Travelers returning from the remoter parts of the galaxy even spoke of giant clouds of gas drifting in outer space, which had evolved intelligence of a sort based on internal force fields. As a rule, the bigger and more complex the brain, the higher the intelligence. But most of the super brains were too large to move around independently and kept very much to themselves. Luke had seen pictures of some of them, like the giant algae beds in the Cygnus B system, and perhaps the strangest of all, the thinking ocean, such as Scott, which covered the planet Solanus. This was a sea so rich in chemicals it could carry out billions of thought processes in its murky depths. Yet it refused to take part in galactic affairs and spent its time playing with itself, making and reforming elaborate crystal structures and brooding on its own identity. Robert, you can take it from butt all the way down to maybe right here with Luke used to wonder, if you'd be so inclined.
That's underneath the John Chesterman.
But that, as Han Solo would say, is another world. Here on Tatooine, Luke was faced with a familiar range of biology. However strange their outward appearances, at least they walked and talked. Although the bar was noisy, Luke realized that not all the conversation was audible. At higher frequencies than he could hear, there was an ultrasonic cacophony of squeaks and whistles. Clytonians were talking to each other across the room by vibrations in the electric field generated from the leathery scales which covered their bodies. Telepaths bent their heads together in corners, trying to shut out the babble of brainwaves around them, and olfaxes sniffed the air, conversing in what was probably the most sophisticated language of all, the language of smell. A human being has 5 million sensory cells responding to smell signals, and a dog, which is one of the best earthly olfaxes, has 150 million. But on some of the dark planets, a long way from the nearest star or covered with dense clouds, olfaxes had evolved which had half their brains devoted to smell. Using 3 different types of nerves in the same way that humans have 3 different light receptors in their eyes, they could smell in color and 3D, With their eyes closed, they could tell you not only who was in the bar, but where they were standing. There was no way to hide from an Olfax and Imperial stormtroopers seldom got the drop on them because their sensitive noses detected them long before they were visible. It was impossible to lie to them because their smell conveyed the true meaning behind your words. An Olfax could smell anxiety or fear or trust as easily as a human could smell fresh-baked bread.
Before we continue, I'm just gonna check the stream. Also, we got Small Time Republic saying Jabba the Hutt can eat an entire order of fries.
This guy knows
Guys.
good food. Five Guys,
Yeah.
best burger in America.
Yeah. I think my
right.
friend Donnie would agree with you.
Oh, Donnie's a good guy.
Yeah. Do we want Scott to do Luke Used to Wonder?
Yeah, maybe down
I'll do
to
a star, maybe.
yeah, down to
the star. Okay.
Yeah, and I'll just read that little paragraph there.
Luke used to wonder how the Olfaxes, with their poor eyesight, ever discovered the rest of the galaxy until old Ben Kenobi pointed out that many forms of radiation produce smells. Ultraviolet light, for instance, turns oxygen into ozone, and it was the distinctive aroma of this that gave the Olfaxes their first clue to the universe. Scroll up here. Mind you, the old man added, they are hopeless at spaceflight. Their chemical computers are slow compared to ours, and you can't smell anything in a vacuum. Which species make the best pilot? Luke had asked. And to his surprise, Ben had taken down his battered copy of the Universal Encyclopedia and opened it at a picture of an insect-like creature with huge multiple eyes. So what species is this? These, he said, I still need computers, but those can do the calculations in their heads. Look at their eyes with all those facets. Their brains have evolved to coordinate all those images automatically. They think mathematics, trajectories, and orbits come naturally to them. And they are the best astral navigators I have ever come across. They have flicker fusion rate of flicker fusion rate of over 300. What does that mean? Luke asked. It's the speed at which they can take in information. If you look at more than 20 pictures a second, they run together like a film. But you could show these creatures 300 pictures a second, and they would still see each one as a still image. That's how fast they are. Sorry, I'm scrolling here. But be careful with them. They make untrustworthy crew members because they have no emotions. Loyalty means nothing to them. They won't take risks and will desert you if they thought it was in their best interests.
Crazy. What is this species?
I'm wondering. I have a guess. Maybe it's not one of the more well-known ones, but these guys I pulled up. I thought of them from A New Hope. They're called Brizit, and they have these bulbous fly-like eyes. So I just thought of that because of all the computations that Obi-Wan was saying they could make, how they could see multiple images. Wouldn't that require like highly functioning eyes of some kind? So maybe it's something like this that can just see like crazy. And they were present at the Cantina. I don't know.
So
I don't know if that was what it was intended.
I find it hard to believe that we've never encountered these in the Clone Wars. I mean,
it makes it sound like they should be really useful in like any war ever.
Right, because
backstage, Robert suggested maybe Geonosians could maybe be a candidate, which I thought was interesting because obviously Obi-Wan has experience with them. But like, are they great pilots?
We've never seen them really pilot anything.
No,
certainly a possibility, though.
I don't think they matched the description.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
But then also, what also could be a possibility, I suppose, is before our heroes get to the Death Star, another practice could have been the planet. Maybe. I don't know why, but maybe that's why they're not around a bunch. But then you'd think they'd be around in the prequels.
Maybe their planet was destroyed in the Clone Wars.
Well, yeah, true.
Maybe there was some sort of accident. It's not not the Noghri, because the Noghri aren't known for being pilots.
No. Yeah.
The Killik aren't really known for that, and they're kind of
in their own
hidden.
sector.
Alderaanians are another option that aren't Killiks, but they were insectoid species that moved from Alderaan, but were originally from there.
Here's my explanation. I think John Chesterman recounted this from maybe a third-hand, maybe somebody that was at the Cantina.
In universe, John Chesterman.
Right. So this is his recollection of what he heard based on that scene. Maybe somebody that was in the bar that saw the bar fight between Obi-Wan and Dr. E there. And they saw Luke. They remember seeing Luke walk through the Cantina and talking with Obi-Wan and Han and Chewbacca. And maybe they just got it wrong.
Maybe.
Also, just want to say hello, Harry.
Maybe they're Thyferans. That's another one that I thought of. Yeah.
Thyferans are humans, and is there an alien species there too?
Yeah, Thyferans are insectoids, and they're known for building ships.
Okay. I thought they were known for Bacta.
For Bacta, yeah. But I believe they were also known for building. Maybe I've got that one wrong. I know there is
ships is different.
There is an insectoid who's known for building ships. I'll try to find it. Maybe for example, with your John Chesterman in universe secondhand account theory, perhaps he heard it from a Brizit, and the Brizit, which is that insectoid that was there, and the Brizit was making it about how like, oh, they were talking about us as great pilots to like try to impress them. Maybe you know. But
to finish this off, because I think that's the end of the story,
we've got a last paragraph here.
Yeah. Luke remembered Ben Kenobi's words as he looked around the bar. What was that phrase the old warrior used? Never mind what they look like, it's how they think that matters. But what were they thinking, these bioelectrics, telepaths, olfaxes, and heat sensitives whose world was a rainbow of different temperatures and ultrasonics who saw right through him? Not for the first time, he was glad that Kenobi and the Force was with him. Well, at least Obi-Wan is not racist.
We also do have this little introductory paragraph that's not really a part of the story, but if you want to read it, sure, Alex, it's kind of the intro.
So, yeah, sure. Mos Eisley is a frontier town, and the city bar room was crowded with creatures from other planets. Traders, dealers, freelance space crews looking for a job. Confidence, tricksters, and the outlaws from a dozen worlds. Somehow, Ben Kenobi and himself had to find a pilot who would take them on their desperate mission. His old tutor plunged in the crowd, and Luke was left on his own, wondering at the extraordinary variety of life forms around him. What were they thinking? What strange sense and skills did they possess? Above all, which of them could they trust? And that's that.
So I'll give my thoughts. It sounds like they allude to a lot of sci-fi species that don't have supernatural powers, but they just have like natural evolved scientific, like a thinking ocean, right? We don't really get too much of that aside from maybe the Black Fleet Crisis and the Kella species, where they have like a spaceship that they can evacuate and like save their race because their planet's dying or their planet's going through an ice age or something. We get more of the fantastical like species with either force abilities or other crazy like supernatural powers, but we don't get a lot of like natural scientific powers. So that's something that I would have liked to have seen more of in the expanded universe.
Yeah, I think so too.
Definitely. I think my appreciation for the story grows every time I read it. This was like my 6th time reading it. And what I appreciate is this does literally what the expanded universe is supposed to do. It just expands the universe. And I think it's really cool. John Chesterman didn't have to write new dialogue, new species, new concepts. He could have just written what he saw in the film. But instead, he expanded the universe, and I really respect that. And it's really a cool piece of history, is the first EU short story. And I actually really like some of the stuff here. Like you said, not supernatural entities, but rather evolved, unconventional species. right? We have so many humanoid species in Star Wars. Same with Star Trek.
It
To
honestly
kind of
comes off
explain.
kind of Star Trek.
This is very Star Trek-y, you know, sentient gases,
reminds me of Crystal
sentient
Star.
oceans. Yeah, very Crystal Star-esque too. Maybe Vonda and McIntyre based her book off of this short story.
You never know.
No, but you know, it's fun and it makes the galaxy feel bigger. And I wish we did get more of these kind of unconventional concepts in the EU following it. But I do think what it aims to do, it absolutely excels and succeeds at. And hey, in my head canon, Obi-Wan definitely had an encyclopedia of the galaxy with him.
And he just
of course
has
he did.
on pull
Yep.
up his butt.
Definitely. He's got like a little pocket for it. He's not gone a day without reading a passage. He got bored on Tatooine. Like, what else is there to do but fight Tuskens and survive? Read that encyclopedia, you know?
Well, if you remember back to the prequel era, all those Jedi had the Jedi communicators, that disc thing where they could communicate back to Coruscant and report back to the Jedi Council. Maybe just like that was standard operating procedure, they had that with them on all times, in addition to their lightsaber, of course. There was also some like Boy Scout manual, like the Universal Encyclopedia that like all Padawans had. And Obi-Wan, because he thought it was such a great idea, just kept it with him after he got promoted to Jedi Knight and Jedi Master. So he had that with him his whole life because he thought, you know, that was best practice. Dealing with all the alien species he did in the Old Republic, it would make use for a good reference manual, I think.
Definitely.
I was going to before you do that, before everyone else.
Absolutely.
I just don't want to. Harry Henry says that in a way, the story is Star Wars kind of doing more conceptual what-if science fiction than usual pulp fantasy. He also says,
yes,
crazy to see this story a decade before Galaxy Guide #1 expanded on Mos Eisley Cantina.
And we had a species name there. Is that a named species from the film? I don't believe it is. I think that's the something or other. I think that's original to here, as far as I'm aware.
Clytonians, yeah, I think it is. And then there's a planet referenced in Cygnus B. So Cygnus is a starship manufacturing company. So there's a Cygnus Spaceworks starship, and it's referenced in the Jedi Academy trilogy, I think, and I think it's also an X-Wing and TIE fighter, if I'm not mistaken. But Cygnus Spaceworks is a famous droid, or not a droid, but a starship manufacturing company.
The Clytonians were again mentioned in the Essential Atlas, which makes sense. It sounds like it expanded on it, elaborated on them a little bit, but that's cool that they drew that from there. I'm curious what Robert thinks of this story, because as far as I know, this was his first time reading it. So what are your first impressions for it?
I do find it interesting that it touches on a concept that, of course, we're very familiar with now, and that being frames per second.
That is so true. Yeah, FPS, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Harry also says real quick, really nerdy language term here. This story has Hapax
legomenon
species, i.e., they're mentioned only once, and that's fascinating.
Like the Solus, the ocean planet.
There's not that concept's out of left field, considering we have other things that are quite as weird as that.
It is quite Star Trek-y.
But it's weird to never hear from them again.
The thinking ocean made me immediately think of the comic that we covered. Can't think of it now. It's the Keeper's World. Keeper's World. So you have an entity that sort of is kind of a robot that kind of controls the planet. There was a little bit more supernatural powers in there than just natural evolved powers.
Yeah, this was all about how it can computate stuff, how billions of cells make it up and make its conscience up.
Right.
It's more analytical.
I guess it's still science, but it's fantastical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's of note.
And imagine trying to go throughout your life just based on your sense of smell, not seeing anything. You just got to smell everybody and their location and proximity to everything. Like going through doors, you have to smell if the door is open. I mean,
I guess that's what
Daredevil.
moles have to do. Do they have?
Yeah.
Yes,
But these are sentient species that they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And they mentioned they can smell if somebody's lying to you.
I love that one. Probably, I'm guessing that would have to do with perspiration, clues and tells like that.
I think
Like
so.
if someone's sweating a lot, they can smell it.
I think they'd be pretty good at gambling and sensing if somebody's bluffing. So
But
they'd
can
be
they
good
move
at
stuff?
the
It's like
sabacc tables.
Poker faces, undone.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's also probably the weirdest part of this story is the fact that it canonizes like dogs on Tatooine and chickens. Like
So
our world dogs.
there is a
Yeah.
dog in the New Republic novelization.
We
Yeah.
have another comment from Harry.
All right. Let's see. Oh, we got a couple. My bad.
Yeah, I thought about
Not
this
quite a
too.
living planet, but the Pana planet in the animated holiday special had that gelatin ocean, and that's really stuck to me since. It also
Yes.
says, like not to dunk on the sequel trilogy, but when the animated segment and holiday special had a more creative planet design than the ST, that's pretty sad. I agree wholeheartedly on that one.
Wow. Dang. Just murdered by words from Harry.
Has just proven without a shadow of a doubt that the holiday special, which before I think we all said
There's
was
my DVD
not
up there.
better than the sequel trilogy, but I think Harry in that one paragraph.
Y'all were blaspheming
has
in that
proven-
episode then.
Yeah, we did. You weren't there to defend yourself.
Until
we
the
did
end.
prove that the holiday special may in fact be better than the sequel trilogy.
Is that even a question?
It was to us before.
Well, I mean, you're in the room with Brennan at the moment.
Yeah, and Brendan's a very biased fellow.
Well, hey, what can I say? I'm a sucker for Lumpy.
I think we all agreed that the animated segment was the
Definitely
Was
the
the,
best part.
yes.
Absolutely. I'm curious if you have any other thoughts on this short story. We kind of went on a tangent because what you said was so interesting, so we all started chiming in with it. But Robert, any other like thoughts, review? What do you think of the story? I guess we'll get to like maybe a 10-point grading later, but I find it intriguing, this story.
It would have been nice to see things like the thinking ocean expanded upon in maybe another short story, because
Definitely.
there's definite potential there, but it is, well, it's very short, but it is quite interesting.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like for what we get, you kind of get bang for your buck. It's like 12 paragraphs, and what it introduces is actually some pretty fascinating things. I can't think like how in 12 paragraphs it could be any more interesting. You introduce sentient gaseous clouds, sentient oceans, canines on Tatooine, the implications of Obi-Wan's encyclopedia, new dialogue between Luke and Obi-Wan, new species. Like it covers a lot in a short
Harry
few paragraphs.
Also says it's cool to discover this. It's so obscure, but I'm glad it's come to the surface. It's the first EU prose short story.
We said that earlier, yeah. Very
Yes.
intriguing. And I think it will be the last short story we cover for a while. It's not until West End Games that we get more short stories and Bantam era stuff too.
So I really like that. So obviously we, in A New Hope, we get all the various species that we see in and around Mos Eisley. You know, mostly. So there's all the ones that we see in the Cantina, but we also get, for example, the Kubas, right?
Mm-hmm. Outside the spy, right?
But this story, it's the first thing we get that really shows that there's a wealth of other sentient species in the galaxy, that what we saw in the Cantina was barely scratching the surface.
Yes.
Mhm.
Very true.
It's also
It
interesting
provides scope for so much more out there. Sorry, Scott.
that they don't attempt to write a narrative for some of the characters that you obviously saw in the films, right? The Tanaka sisters, the Boshek character, right? You could create a narrative around some of these characters. The Anzati with the pipe, right? You could kind of create a backstory to some of these characters, but they don't really attempt to do that here. They just say in general, these are some of the species out there. We're not trying to define any of these characters that you saw in the films, because
And
we'll leave that to.
If Chesterman had, likely some of the names could have been different than names we ended up with, right?
Right. Well, I'm not sure if they didn't have permission or they were afraid that some of the characters might appear in the sequels. I mean, you could only speculate what they were thinking about then, but I found it interesting that they didn't immediately try to do that, which would you would think if they could, that would be what they try to do, because they came out with action figures of a lot of these characters even in the 1977, right after that film. So I don't know if they were named first based on the action figure. That's probably what happened, but I think some of them just had generic names,
and a few in concept art probably had some names.
Yeah.
Harry also says that in hindsight, it's a good thing. It means this story can coexist with tales from
I
Mos
completely
Eisley.
agree. And if Disney was smart, the Legends banner Tales from Mos Eisley could have reprinted this on just like a page, throw it in there with it. I think that would have been dope. I think a lot of people would have gone out and acquired the Legends banner one, nice little touch.
I think it was on Hyperspace for a while when that platform was available.
They re-archived it there. And a couple of these concepts, it seems like, were mentioned again, so it wasn't entirely forgotten. I mean, the Essential Atlas made the effort, or online Essential Atlas material mentioned whatever that planet that began with a K on Wikipedia. I just checked. And the original species from here was Clytonians. It looks like Jason Fry was discussing it online and the planet and stuff like that in there, according to Wikipedia. So, and then as Scott said earlier, was it X-Wing that picked up on Solanus, or not Solanus, but the other one?
Cygnus Spaceworks. Now they probably just used that name. Maybe that name was on a list of things like Mace Windu. We're on a list of Star Wars names that they could have just used for any licensing purpose. So I don't know if they got that specifically from this story, but it's possible.
Harry also says we have two different names for Cornelius Evazan and Ponda Baba, because I believe the radio drama named them. Later they were retconned as their aliases.
That's interesting.
But yeah, I think that pretty much covers the gist of that. It's a nice, short and sweet episode today. Probably the shortest I've ever done, because there's not much to talk about here. But I think,
what would you give it if you had to, like, all things considered?
I mean, everything you said, you pretty much stole right from my mouth. So there's nothing for me to add there. But I always love when the expanded universe expands anything, even if it's just a page that adds something of relevance. I was going to ask, I don't remember if Joe may have archived it on his site, because I feel like that's something he would probably do.
I think I'd suggested to it.
If he hasn't, he definitely should. But
I don't think it's on there yet. I think I have suggested it to him on like a short list of various stuff that we could put on there. So I'm sure it'll get on there eventually.
Yeah, because it definitely needs to be accessible. Because I think, especially because we did this whole story in less than 5 minutes. Like, I definitely think that it should be up there for people to be able to view, because even if it's something small,
piece of history,
it's a piece of history.
For short story in the EU.
For short story in the EU, and concepts that exist for, whether the EU gets continued or not, the fans kind of keep it alive. If they want to write a story about these two alien species that have no mention anywhere, and they want to find a way to do that with no contradiction, because otherwise I won't accept your fan fiction. I'm sorry. But if it's within continuity, then I would love to read some story with some of these concepts that were brought up here.
I immediately notated that I'm going to feature those Kytonians, or however.
Are we doing that in the space opera now?
I'm definitely putting those somewhere in the story.
Right, because this is a co-written fan fiction that we're writing.
And for one of them, we've got to include. We have some Jedi characters in one of our next fan fictions. So we've got to put the encyclopedia in there.
I guess
say that it's like Scott said,
Pablo
mandatory
Hidalgo.
reading for Padawans, right?
Pablo Hidalgo's character definitely has it. But Harry also says, I'd love to join for the Wookiee storybook when we get to it. He has plenty to say there. And yes, love Brennan throwing deep lore into your stories. To be fair, technically, I will say I only get about 20% of credit. I don't know if I'm gonna get in trouble for saying that with Ken if he sees this, but this is a co-authored story. However, I can't write, so I am George Lucas providing ideas,
This is ideas, man.
and I'm
apparently.
going to write some things, but a good portion. If it's a good story, if it's written well, it's not because of me. I'm telling you now.
I feel
but,
that I have a
so-
hard time writing. I've been writing since I was like 6 or 7, but I've always found a hard time writing characters to feel believable, to have a soul to the characters. So I think Alex can bring more
I
heart
think you
to
did a good
characters,
job
more
in-
empathy to characters.
I think you did a good job in the pod
Right.
racer with the one guy.
Speaking of which, actually, back to this short story for a second, as that is why we're here. I get the sense that Luke is very, in the way his dialogue's written, I was just thinking about this while we were reading it. It feels like he's naive and out of his depth. It definitely does feel that way.
Well,
Just
he
the
should
way
be.
it's written, the dialogue. I thought they did a good job of characterizing Luke. In the short dialogue lines he did have, he felt very early Luke to me. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, very same way you would see him in the films, right? He
Yeah.
gets into the cantina. He's obviously feels a little out of place there, doesn't quite know what to do, sees all these
Wide-eyed.
aliens he's never seen before. He does speak Yuz though, so he should at least be at home somewhat. He picked up Yuz somewhere. But
Maybe Yuz was in that little encyclopedia and he read it on the speeder
on
right
the
over.
trip to Alderaan, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
I
this
think
would have been 1979, right?
Yeah, 19. This short story, 19. I think 1979
Yeah,
is
we
right.
went a little ahead
Yes.
for this special because I think we should have read some Marvel comics before this.
I think there's 3 issues that come out before it.
But this was a fun one to do that I knew could be done within a short time span.
real quick, you had mentioned Joe hosting this now, but we did pull this off the only place we could find it, which was the force.net Time Tales. So shout out to them for still keeping this
Definitely.
up and
Absolutely.
running.
It's a little hard to find for people, but you can find it if you look for it. Go to Wikipedia. They have backup links. I think you have to use WayBack machine for it, right? Yeah, because it was a
Right.
backup
Not
link.
us.
Not
Different
us.
Wayback Machine.
Yeah,
The
no,
Wayback
not
Machine
us.
for
The
internet.
other WayBack machine. Good catch,
Or-
Robert.
If you go search through Time Tales on the force.net, you may still find it there.
There's
It may
some
be on the
places.
back pages. It's very hard to navigate that website, but sometimes you can still find some old stuff there.
Just
If you
look up Cantina Communications on Wikipedia,
right.
go down to the sources, go to the Force.net, click on the 1979, wherever you said.
Page 3, issue 16.
But why would they go there? They could be here and
Just
hear all
the
of
whole
us
story.
read the story, which I round of applause for everyone. I thought we did a commendable job. Robert's voice was just silky smooth as always, and I just loved it. So yeah, it was a good time. So why would they need to go there? You could hear us read the story.
There you go. You got your audiobook for this story right here.
Yeah, stay on this WayBack machine. Don't go away. You know.
Yeah, give me the views every time you want to listen to it.
So let's go around with ratings. What do
Yeah.
we give this?
For what it is, I in my mind I grade comic issues by comic arcs by comic arcs. I'm not really necessarily comparing them to novels. You know, I'm comparing them against other comic arcs. Same with novels. So I'll grade this in the perspective of other short stories. I have a top 50 best short stories in the EU list that I've assembled somewhere. I hope it's not lost on my computer files because I had been meticulously working on that for a YouTube video. Shoot, I haven't thought about that video in like a year. But I did have it top 25, Cantina Communications. I just, something about the universe feeling young just appeals to my imagination. Like it's such a wide galaxy out there. So I'd probably give it a respectable, 6 to 7 on a short story grading scale. Yeah.
Alex, what do you think?
Oh, I was gonna go last, but I don't like to do ratings for stuff like this.
Sorry for bringing it up.
No, I'm just I don't like the 10-point scale. I think it's kind of dumb.
Use 100.
No, I just do net positive, net negative, net neutral. Doesn't really add anything or not. I think it
Net
adds
Bounty Hunter Wars.
Yeah, like that one. It adds nothing. I mean, it does. There's the bounty hunter. We're not getting on that. That's years down the line.
Okay,
I'll
at least
suffer
give
that.
it a thumbs up or thumbs down.
No, I like it. I think
Okay.
it adds some nice additions. It's not much. It still is just a cantina. It doesn't really expand too much. It gives us little things to kind of digest, and I really appreciate that. And so I think overall it's a net positive. I like the story. It's a unique story. And I hope it becomes more accessible as time goes on, because I do think it's something worth reading. It's a piece of history. I like that, because we have so much of the expanded universe now in hindsight, but back then that's one of the few things we had, and it did add so much to the world. It made you interested. Like, look at all this stuff that wasn't even in the movie that just makes you go, wow, what does this world have to offer? It makes you so interested in reading more, even if there was nothing more to read at the time. And so I think it is commendable for that, and I'm glad it exists.
Okay, Robert, what do you think? Rating?
I also don't tend to do ratings, but yes, I liked it. The only two negatives that I can think of, and these are admittedly nitpicks, are, well, there's the slightly questionable line about the ocean playing with itself.
Yeah,
And,
I raised my eyebrows when that part was being read. What do you mean playing with yourself? That has some weird connotations. Yeah, say it.
Ocean's got an ocean. That's all I'll say.
It's always wet.
And,
It's live. I can't edit that out.
and
The ocean's going through the motions. But sorry, what was the other nitpick?
The fact that they used the Deveronian when
That's a good point.
Brady says hello. He came at the very end.
That's a good point, Robert. I would have loved to have them explored a little more, like since it is the main image for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
we've
a good
also
shout.
got another comment from Harry.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. He says, "Been such a fun stream, guys. Love tackling deep lore here. See y'all next time. Thank you so much."
Thanks for dropping in, Harry.
After Scott's rating, may I just say one more thing about the story as well?
Yeah, I'll give it a rating, even
No,
though some of you guys refuse to do ratings. I definitely don't think it's in the top 25 best short stories, but
I agree.
for what it
I
is.
had it at 24 or 25.
Okay, that's
crazy.
very generous, considering there's not much there, and you're comparing it to things like Tales from Jabba's Palace, Tales from Mos Eisley Cantina. It's nowhere close. But even stuff in the West End games, it's not even close to that. But I would give it. It's good for what it is. 7 out of 10.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I think that's fair. I did want to say, I don't know what became of John Chesterman, if he's still alive, if he isn't, but I want to say a maybe special thank you to him for taking the opportunity when he could have just written a scene by scene thing, or just written a Luke and Obi-Wan go in a cantina during the movie kind of thing. I want to shout him out for having some imagination and really doing why we're here, expanding the universe.
Yeah.
Because that's what he did. And he's credited for work on Poster Monthly 16, 17, and 18. And those are his lone contributions to Star Wars. So thank you to Mr. Chesterman. I don't know if he's still with us, hopefully so. But thank you to him for just using his brain and being the first short story author in the entire history of the Star Wars Expanded Universe. Yeah,
I think there's a joke in there somewhere. A Jedi, a farm boy, and a thinking ocean walk into a bar on Tatooine.
We're probably gonna get wet.
Maybe.
And with that, I think I'll say goodbye. So thank you all so much for joining me. It's always a pleasure to have Robert and Scott here. They're always my number ones. They're always here. They're amazing for that. And then I got Brennan, who usually isn't here, but now he's kind of forced to be here because I'm in his home with a gun pointed at his head. No, I'm just kidding. He did this voluntarily, I think.
I've appeared on all but one episode.
That's true.
Yeah.
But it's always
the second and only.
Yeah. But it's good to be here with all of you. Love
Who's Al? I just remember like 3 Scandits.
Yeah. Those dirty Scandits.
We love you, Al.
Yeah.
I'm sure Al will be back next episode when we're covering Marvel Comics.
Yes.
Great.
Hope so.
I'm back
I'm
up.
gonna miss that. What?
Yeah, he's the one that knows about comics anyway. So, well, and Robert, but yeah. So we'll see you next time, and I don't know if that's when that will be, but as soon as I do, you'll know because you'll see a video popping up. But yeah, until next time, we'll steal from Star Trek. Live long and prosper.
What? What does that have to do with the story?
Bye-bye.
No. Cantina Communications. That's got to be the last word.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.